and this is serious stuff, this is where we're at. We are at it. We have a president that has his own marching. He listens, as I said, to his own muse. And I don't know if we in the press can stop it. We haven't done a good job. If we suddenly turn on a dime, it won't make a difference because he doesn't pay attention. He's written us off. He doesn't care what we think. Clearly, he just doesn't care what the New York Times, Washington Post, the networks. He's got his Fox, he's got his cable, he's got his moral majority. He's got people afraid, as Jon Stewart said, of boys kissing boys. And he plays on that. Although I think this election was lost because of a bad candidate, bad Democratic candidate, and never spelled out the issue. What do we do? What's going to happen? Well, the one thing that may save us all, and we should be glad in a way, I think, that Kerry didn't win, because he'd find it impossible to govern, particularly since he would have supported the Fallujah operation. He wouldn't have had the gumption to stand up against it. He would have divided the party. His own party would have been fractured. And it would have been a minority party, would have been, I think in a funny way, I say this only because you have to deal, you know, that, as the song says, you got to play the cards you have. I think we just have to decide that we're going to have to let events trigger it. One of the things, there are a couple amazing things going on in the world. First, Europe. Europe's against us, and that's not inconsiderable. You heard, some of you may have read today, Chirac has been telling, and he's been in London recently, just blasting away at this president and at the war. It's unjust, it's wrong, you can't win. Europe's going to do something collectively against us. They're not going to tolerate a wild American. Europe is 3,000 miles closer to this craziness in Iraq. They do not want chaos. The French, the Germans, Brussels, Amsterdam, all these countries have enormously volatile Muslim minorities. The French have been mishandling it from the beginning. Remember the whole thing with the kerchiefs in schools, headwear in schools, among the school kids, Muslim school kids. They've butchered this already. A continuing war that leads into chaos is not in their best interest. So they want to do something to settle it. And they will move collectively. They'll organize in some ways. The American dollar's in big trouble. I don't know how many of you, I'm not a great, it's very sophisticated to track the dollar and its consequences on the budget and on American society, but the dollar's falling. And the Chinese own roughly something like $1.2 trillion of our debt. They've been buying the debt. My friends tell me there's going to be a big move to stop buying our debt, and that the French and the Chinese eventually will be the first to break away and start buying oil in euros. So they're going to devalue our dollar, which in the long run is very unstable, destabilizing. Ask anybody who runs a hedge fund, any of your friends that has a hedge fund. We all have friends with hedge funds, right? But as a journalist, I know people who run hedge funds, and they're all telling, all the billionaires are telling other billionaires to get out of the market and start buying overseas, buying either foreign currency and foreign stocks. They see a lot of economic problems coming. We have no cash. The collection, for example, the estate tax that he's killed, which is a tax that affects what significant percentage of the upper class, 1/10 of 1% at the top, is a real burden on them. It's gone down. We've collected $18 billion a couple of years ago. We're going to get $12 billion this year and soon be down to nothing. This is one of his tax cuts. He's basically changed, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, he's changed the tax system from upper middle class to lower middle class. Just changed the burden without it really becoming an articulated issue in the campaign. That drove me nuts. So the Europeans, the other thing that's important to know about what's going to happen in the next few months is Europe and the Middle East has given us a pass largely. We elected this yo-yo in a close race. And then after 9/11, we didn't foresee 9/11. We didn't foresee his behavior. And so the American people it was always seen as, you Americans, you poor guys, you have this crazy president you have to go along with. You know, he's your president, but you'll get rid of him. I think the election shook up everybody. And I think from this point on, Americans are going to be considered more culpable generally. The division that a lot of people, particularly in the Middle East rather, the division they have between Americans who support and don't support is going to be sort of diminished. You could see more violence. I don't want to be a purveyor of scare talk, but you could see more casual violence, unprincipled, indirect violence against Americans abroad. You certainly will see continuing. One of the things, go on the internet and check it out. Disney in its new theme park outside Paris is going down. large American corporations, some of the car manufacturers that do a lot of business, Americans that do business abroad, going down. You're going to see a distinct sort of, it's going to be a matter of national pride not to buy American in many parts of the world. So you're going to see dwindling business for our corporations, lack of income. And the other thing is eventually somebody in Europe, the German prime minister has a tough, he's got an election against a conservative woman, a very conservative woman. He'll win. Once he gets that under his belt, you're going to see the Germans begin to lead with the French an effort to change the interlocutor between Arabs and Palestinians, between Israelis and Palestinians. I think you're going to see finally Europe saying, we're sick of America being the sole people brokering this alleged peace between Sharon and the Palestinians, and we're going to see some serious efforts made to change the names of the players, get Bush out of it. This is all big stuff. Well, I'll tell you on what basis I talk, just so you know this. I travel a lot because that's what I do, and I do talk to foreign ministers and the heads of foreign intelligence agencies. I can get to them much more than I get my own people, and so I have heard this at the various highest level, that this is something on the agenda. Nobody wants to talk publicly now about it because, of course, it's so threatening and it's so disruptive, and the Israelis will go batty, and you want to keep some, and you can't do it anyway. You have to be politically strong enough. And Germany right now isn't. Chirac probably is. He's moving that way. Talking that way increases his standing inside France. I'll give you an example. The book I did was published simultaneously in about 10 European countries. It's amazing. Guys staying up all night to translate because that's how anti-American they are over there. It's really deep and profound. And we're looking at a picture where I think we're going to see is continued warfare. As you know, this is not a war done and run by the jihads. That's a canard. A very small percentage. The Baathists always hated jihadists. That's always the way it's been. I was in Syria about 4 months after the war began, and I saw the president, who was very much underrated. Syria is I don't think I'm shocking you by telling you there isn't an American I know. There is an American hawk I know that hasn't told me, and this is all inferential. I mean, he's told me, it doesn't mean this is the policy, that if the war had gone the way we wanted to in Iraq, if we'd gone in and it worked as well as we wanted to, we would have turned left and right to Iran and Syria. And right now, I can tell you right now, Syria and Iran are both in the guns. You see all these little stories about how this war is continuing because Syria supports it. You see that theme. The neocons never gave up on Syria. The Alawites, this sort of religious group that controls Syria, is about 11%. There's a large Sunni majority. The neocons think they can go into Syria, invade, and the government would fall like this, and the Sunnis would take over, which would get a Sunni government there, put more pressure on Shiite Iran. They really believe this. They believe that the young Assad kid would go down in a minute. Meanwhile, that's what they believe. And what the reality is, it turns out, makes no difference with these guys. The dismantling of the CIA is more important. It's not just about personality. It's about making sure there's no dissenting view. And just making it bureaucratically impossible to have a dissenting view. So you can have a view that goes from the Pentagon into the White House without any significant dissent. And I'm actually a plain boy reporter in this area, and I can tell you there's much more to it, but we'll see. It's bad enough as what you get. It has to do with who's going to do operations in the future, that kind of stuff.